What is up, traders? It's your boy Kev. Welcome back to yet another video. Today's video is actually going to be slightly different from the videos that I make. I'm actually going to be showing you guys a trade that I took a couple of days ago. I'm going to be going through exactly what I saw on this trade and why I took this trade. And hopefully through explaining this trade, you guys are actually going to be able to see how I analyze the charts and how I'm able to catch some of these trades and how I approach the markets when I'm looking for setups. So the first thing that I did when I hopped onto the charts, I actually noticed that the market was actually moving in an uptrend. That's why I drew this trend line right here. So the market was making higher highs and higher lows. We can clearly see that price was actually pushing all the way to the upside, and it actually went all the way to the upside to form this double top right here. So this is usually a good indication that the market is going to be reversing to the downside. So as soon as you see that the market is unable to keep breaking its highs anymore and it's struggling to break its highs, that is a good indication that the market is going to start pushing to the downside. So the first thing that I did was to notice that price was actually slowing in momentum. It wasn't able to keep pushing above its previous highs anymore. It struggled to push, and it just started pushing all the way to the downside. And when it broke this strong support level right here, that's when I knew that price was definitely going to be pushing to the downside. So when I move even closer, so this is the trade that I took right here. The market was actually still stuck somewhere here. I am going to show you guys an analysis that I made. I'm just going to put it up so that you guys see where I actually caught the market, where I saw the market, and what my prediction was on the chart. But I know that price was actually stuck somewhere right here. So this is where price was stuck somewhere here, and I knew that it is not advisable for me to take a sell. I knew that price was actually going to start pushing to the downside. Even though I knew that price was actually going to push to the downside, I knew that it wouldn't be wise for me to just sell when the market is somewhere here, because this is a huge impulsive move. Remember, you want to avoid impulsive moves, and you want to wait for the market to give you a proper corrective move before you can continue pushing to the downside. So when price was somewhere here, I knew that this corrective move was not done. And that is another thing that you guys have to learn. You have to understand that even if the market moves up a little bit, like that doesn't mean that that is a proper corrective move. You have to wait for price to actually fully create its corrective move before you can start taking sells to the downside. So when price was actually stuck somewhere here, I knew that it had to continue pushing all the way to the upside before it can start giving me a proper corrective move and for me to take my sells to the downside. So I waited for price to actually push all the way to the upside, and when it came to the upside, this was not only a retest of my trend line right here, but it was also a retest of the strong level right here. We can clearly see that price was actually bouncing so many times on this level. It bounced right here. So this was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So when price actually broke this level impulsively, so I knew that it was definitely going to be retesting somewhere right here before we're going to start taking sells to the downside. So I waited for the market to push, as I said, all the way to this level right here. And as soon as it got here, I didn't just take my sells. Remember, just because price is at a resistance level doesn't mean that it's going to be pushing to the downside. You have to wait for proper confirmations. And my favorite confirmations are usually bearish engulfing candles or your reversal pin bars. Let me just remove this. So this is exactly where I wanted price to be situated before I can start taking my sells. And when price started pushing all the way to this level, I didn't just take I could have just decided to take my sells and start pushing to the downside because I know that price is going to push to the downside. But remember, there are no 100% guarantees in the market. You have to use your confirmations. You have to use confluence to actually guide you in the trades that you're taking. You can't just use one single guideline or one single indicator for you to take your trades, because chances are it's not going to be a valid signal. You have to use a lot of confirmations for you to take your trades. As I said, I waited for the market to come right here, and when it started giving me head and shoulders setups, let's just hop onto a smaller time frame. Let's go to a 15-minute chart so that you guys see what I saw there. So when I hopped onto a smaller time frame, I could clearly see that the market was actually starting to reverse. And one of the ways that you see that the market is reversing is when it's unable to keep breaking its highs anymore. When we look on our left, we can clearly see that price is actually breaking highs. So it broke this high, it broke this high, and it broke this high. But when it got somewhere here, it was unable to keep breaking these highs. That's when it started moving a little bit to the downside. So we can clearly see that it made this low right here and it broke that low. So when it started breaking these lows right here, that's when I knew that price was definitely going to start pushing to the downside, because this also simulates a head and shoulder setup. We can clearly see that this is a shoulder and this is another shoulder right here, and this would be the head, and that's when the market just started pushing all the way to the downside. And that's when I knew that price was definitely reversing. And my strongest reason for believing that price was actually going to start reversing to the downside was because I identified this key level right here. So price was definitely at an area of value, and it started reversing at this level. So it wasn't able to keep pushing all the way to the upside. If price actually broke above this level, I was going to wait for it to give me proper confirmations that it was going to continue pushing all the way to the upside, and that's when I was going to take buys. But because price actually failed to break above this key level right here, and I was also anticipating sales to the downside, I knew when it started reversing a little bit that it wants to go to the downside. So when I saw this head and shoulder setup, that's when I started preparing my sales, and I was able to take a sell to push all the way to the downside. And that's exactly what price did. But I want you guys to see what happened. So when we hop onto the daily chart, I just want you guys to see something right here. I actually knew that price was gonna start reversing when it came to this trend line right here. So remember, when you're trading, you want to make sure that you clearly define your entry points, your stop losses, and your exit points. So you have to know when to hop out of the market. So if you're going to be selling in an overall uptrend, you have to know when to step out of the market or when to close your trades, because if you don't clearly do that, price is just going to reverse out of the blue and you're not going to understand why it's reversing. I knew that price was actually in an uptrend because it was making higher highs and higher lows, and I had this clearly defined trend line right here. So when I was selling in an overall uptrend, I knew that when price got somewhere here, I had to step out of the market. So I had two options: either to stay out of the market when price got somewhere here, or I could start preparing my buys and push with the market all the way to the upside. And that's exactly what happened. Price pushed all the way to this trend line right here, and it reversed, immediately pushed up with this huge impulsive bullish candle. And I know that price is definitely going to start pushing all the way to the upside. And with what is happening right now, price is currently in its corrective move. So this is a corrective move, an exhaustion move. Remember, price moves in impulses and corrections. So it moves up like that, it gives you a corrective move, and it continues pushing up. And that's the nature of price, and you just have to wait for corrective moves so you can take trades in that direction. It's important for you to move with price. You shouldn't necessarily try to move against the trend. It is very important for you to understand where price is moving and to move with it. You shouldn't necessarily try to, but if it happens that you are an experienced trader, you can always do that as long as you clearly define where you're going to be hopping out of the market. As I mentioned, it is very important to know when you're going to be hopping out of the market, because you can have your trades sell and the market is going to push all the way to the downside. But if you don't know, or if you don't clearly define where you're going to be hopping out of the chart or when you're going to be closing your trades, you're just going to see a huge candle coming out, and this is going to make you lose all your profits. So you have to make sure that you know when you're going to be taking your profits, so that you can avoid the market taking all your profit. So this was one of the trades that I actually took a couple of days ago. It was a successful trade, and I hope you guys actually saw a thing or two about how I actually analyze the market. I don't complicate things, as you guys can clearly see. I trade based on what I see. So this is what we call price action. I also want to show you another trade that I actually took. It was GBP JPY. I want us to quickly analyze it so that you guys can see how I was able to catch the trade.